before we start the project. This press release is never going to see the light of day, right? You're going to have a different press release to announce your product. This is a decision press release. You write just like a regular press release, but it's like just for the team, right? To get a sense of like what we are doing here. So don't think of it as a marketing tool. That's one mistake. The second mistake is think of it as a plan. Like people spend too much time on the details before they think of the big picture. Like what exactly are we trying to do here? What is the outcome that we're trying to achieve for us, the business, and for our customer? Like, so the PRFQ forces you to stay in that like big picture mode for a while before you jump into the details and like go do it. And both successful people, and like we are hungry to go and do it, right? Like we're not talking about it. Let's just jump and do it. The PRFQ is like, wait, let's pause for a minute and let's just like eliminate some obvious risks here, and then we can do it if we decide it.
Right. Interesting. So when so you took this and this is an Amazon thing, but you have experience working in other companies, and you've been an entrepreneur yourself. Do you see the need? Like, have you, obviously you love this, right? Like, so because you're writing about it, it's out there. And so, but do you find that like some of these other companies could really benefit from this strategy? And then I guess the second part to my question is how does it work with the employee base? Like, where's the buy-in? Like, how are they seeing it? Because when you start to implement something like this, you always run across that situation where, you could have a mass revolt from an employee's base and, because they don't like the new system or the new process. And so how does it help with implementation from that standpoint as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bobby. One thing that the PRFQ does really well is bridge the gap between employee and executives, right? So often what happens is executives have a vision, but they don't articulate it well enough. And employees start executing on a poorly articulated strategy. And then you have all the dysfunctions of a team, like misalignment, miscommunication, like dead ends, like that's not direction, let's go back. The PRFQ kind of eliminates that, but also does the other way around. The PRFQ doesn't have a buy-in. It has a way in, right? So it's a mechanism to get people to give their opinion into a strategy and a vision. However, they are not the owner. You have a person who is the owner, who's going to be making the call. People still have an opportunity to say what they want to say and contribute and review and provide feedback on their expertise. Like if you're a lawyer, a marketing person, or sales or a product leader, like you can provide your angle. But at the end of the day, the owner of the PRFQ is the one that's going to make the call of like direction and strategy.
Interesting. I like that. And so back to the first part of the question, like does Microsoft, does some of these other companies that you were with, do they implement this or any form of this at this point? And are they seeing success?
Yeah, Amazon implements all over the place. So Amazon, like every team uses this. This is almost like mandatory, right? It's part of the culture there. I know that lots of teams at Microsoft have adopted it. Other teams at Google have adopted. More organizations are starting to adopt this framework because it really does a job well. It's not the all-encompassing. Like I said, it's not a roadmap, it's not a planning tool, it's not going to have a marketing component, but it is really good for discussion, vision, strategy.
How does it not become, when you do something for that long, I feel like sometimes, I see this in a lot of the coaching clients that I work with, that it just becomes a thing that you're checking the box.
Yes.
Right. And it becomes sort of old and stale. And how do you keep this really focused on driving meaningful innovation and not just checking the boxes?
Yeah. And it happens even at Amazon, right? I can tell you, there is some people that write this PRFQ at Amazon as a check the box of exercise. And it's not really productive to do it like that. The important thing is to remember, this is just a piece of the puzzle, not the puzzle. Like you want to think of this almost like a prototype. When you build a prototype, it's not the real product, right? Like you're just like trying something and evaluating. When you think of the document as the product, then you have trouble, right? Like this is not it. So like,
do you look at it as a tool, you think?
Yeah, it's a step in a bigger process. Like you can imagine like a bigger project, like if you're going to launch a product or a new service or a new program or a new business, there are multiple things that you have to do. One of those is a PRFQ, right? To discuss vision and strategy until you get to a point that you're happy. but it's not the end game by itself.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, where can people find you and get the book? Where can they order the book and learn more about your work?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to Google and search for PRFAQ book, and you're going to find the book website. And I have a ton of articles, examples, templates that you can use, and you can find how to buy the book as well.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate you, and I know that David wished he could be on the show today to have some time with you. But we'll certainly get you back when he's back on. So, but thank you for sharing this information with us. It's really, really interesting.
Sounds good.
Marcelo, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Have you tried that method?
I haven't. No, I'm actually, I want to pick up the book now and kind of read about it in here, as a company that's growing and you hear about things like this that work in other companies. Some of it I don't believe in, you know what I mean? I will say that I do struggle with some of the stuff that large corporations actually do, because I think it's all nonsense, but this sounds pretty interesting. I'd like to read about it and then circle back up.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, I've heard of it before, and I people swear by it. But I'm intrigued to see, does it really drive innovation? Does it really spark like deep thought on like where this product is going? Does it speed the process up? Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of questions for sure. So
yeah, and Marcelo brought up a good point, because he said, in that particular case, he said, you're trying to fill the gap between upper management and lower management in regards to this. So that's a key factor right there, and that's something that all companies struggle with. So if that gap can be filled, and then this process be implemented successfully, maybe it's a good thing. So yeah, very interested to look at it and read the book. I think everybody else should pick it up, and we can all. I would love to hear some chat on this later.
Yeah, to your point, what's interesting, right, is I know. In my companies that I've started and run, it's always a challenge to get people at the bottom to contribute ideas, right, and to own processes and to help drive product with stuff. So, if this helps get everybody involved in that innovative process, then it might be interesting. But we'll have to come back to those thoughts. We've got our next guest, Paul Powell. Now, Paul's based in Huntsville, Alabama. He's founder of paulpowell.com. Welcome to Office Hours.
Hey, Rhett. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
It's good to see you. And Bobby, I think you were on last time as well.
Oh, we were together one of the last times you were on, man. How you doing, brother?
It was just entrepreneur last time. I see it's now genius/entrepreneur. So you've gotten a raise.
I've gotten a promotion. Somebody out there thinks I'm smart. I don't know who, but they're clearly not.
And I think that may be Gigi. And Red, I think the last time I was with you, I think we were walking around on hot coals for some crazy reason. So
we were walking on fire, man. I don't know why.
No, it was a good time. That was a good time.
It was a great time.
So
are you going out there next month?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. It's so close by. I'm literally less than 2 hours away.
Everybody keeps telling me I need to do it. Bucky keeps asking me, so I'm thinking I'm going to have to do it myself. So I missed the last one, although I did stop out to see Bucky the night before at his VIP event. So
yeah, that was good stuff. I missed that part.
Yeah,
that
part as well. But
so what you been up to, Paul? What's going on, man?
Well, listen, man. It's funny. So I spent 20 years in the investment advisor industry. I consulted to companies anywhere with $50 to $500 million was my space. And I consulted to them on retirement plans. And, I kept seeing in all of those years, I would save these multi-million-dollar retirement plans 10 basis points, 20 basis points, 0.5%. And it was a lot of money, but it probably didn't change anyone's lives, right? I mean, another 0.1%. But at the same time, I would see all of these employees that would then go out with their life savings and they would hire an advisor, and they didn't know any way to vet those advisors. Mm-hmm. And so over and over, I saw them making, poor decisions because they're just going, right. It's if we don't know how to do something, we fall back to the worst possible thing, likability. And so, and it was always sort of, it was just that burr under my saddle. And so basically I created something called Educated Investors. And, I want to teach people a process to vet financial advisors, because a lot of them are C students. If you kind of go by the old 80-20 rule, well, 80% are C students and 20% are maybe A and B. And so how do you find that 20%? And I basically just came up with a process. It would be, I had to go through extensive vetting, right? Somebody's not going to hire someone to manage $500 million without going through a little bit of a vetting process. RFP, request for proposal. You guys are probably familiar with that term. But the average person isn't. And so I essentially created an RFP process that people can use to vet a financial advisor. And, I always say this, if I could just eliminate, just through this process, just through steps 1 and 2, if I could eliminate 90% of the bad apples, what do you think your outcome would be? Significantly better, right?
Different, right? Yeah, very different.
If I can just get rid of the bad apples, you're gonna come out of this a lot better. And so anyway, that's what I've been working on. That's been my little project.
I love this idea, Paul, because it's. I was talking about this the other day. I had a couple financial advisors in my office the other day, and
Sure.
that do high net worth people. We recently, as individuals, moved to UBS, from another financial advising firm, and I will tell you, I think, and everybody can concur with this. We're just a bunch of entrepreneurs that are just grinding. We just grind. All of a sudden, we turn around, we have a bunch of money we need to invest, and we have no idea what to do. We're not experts in it. We don't look at it. And I think that is probably the majority of people out there. And then, the problem is then who do you trust? So most people are trusting my friend said to go to this person because they do a good job for them, but they're not necessarily the right person for you, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. This is a great idea. I mean, so like in that sense, and in this recommendation, like where does this start? Like, can you tell everybody like where does this start for you?
Sure. So you just said something that's very interesting, which is one, we tend to probably talk to somebody we know, and they're using, Bill, Bob, Mary, Sue, and they've done a good job. But the reality is, if I were to ask you, well, could you quantify that good job? No.
Because what's a good job? Oh, I made a few points on my return. That's a good job, right?
So there's the first problem, is that when we go to the referral, or we talking to friends, they don't have any better idea of understanding most times what good is. And I'll give you this example, and I'm sure you're probably paying an asset-based fee, and an asset-based fee is great for the financial advisor. They love it. It's absolutely awful for you. Okay, it's terrible for you. Doesn't make any sense. It's a holdover from the sales industry that financial advisors were in the beginning. So that type of compensation is not advice, because if it were advice, you would say, let me write you a check for 10 grand. You give me the advice, and now we're square on the advice. Where do we go from here? But they give the advice almost away to get your money. Well, that doesn't make sense. And then, Rhett's been successful, and, he's got 10 million sitting here, and Bobby's a genius and an entrepreneur, so he's got 20 million, right? So Rhett pays 1%, and you pay 1%, so you pay twice as much as Rhett for the same thing.
Same service.
So this entire industry is really messed up, right? So we kind of go backwards. I think we have to start with the first thing, which is you have to determine what specialty you need, because the first thing, you don't want to talk to a generalist. Right. I mean, you don't want to have, and I use this story a lot. If your daughter were in a tragic accident and her leg
why do you gotta go
really
there?
messed
Jesus,
up.
Seriously? Is that what we're doing today on a Wednesday? Come on.
I had to believe Bobby had daughters. I've used this forever.
Two boys.
Okay.
You're already done.
Two boys here.
So Bobby, so let's say that they have an accident and the leg is really damaged. And you go and they're like, you know what? This can be fixed. There's a doctor that knows exactly what to do. They do this every single day. and this is all they do. But now, if this surgery doesn't go right, then she's not gonna be able to walk right the rest of her life. Like this has got to be nailed down, right? This is big. Or we do that here as well, and we can work on it. You know, we've seen the videos of how to do the surgery, and we can do that as well. Yeah, I mean,
WebMD, you WebMD.
Yeah, it's laughable, right? But obviously, you're going to go to a specialist.
We watched the YouTube video, yeah.
Absolutely. So you've got two doctors, but one's a specialist. I had back surgery when I was 40, and I had a guy, and all he did was discectomies. And every single day he did discectomies, and that's what I had. And that's the guy I want to do it, right? I want the guy that's done it so many times that this is just second nature. It's just what I do. So anyway, you have to figure out what you need, and you have to go to a specialist, like a CFP, CFA, SEMA. And there's a lot of designations, and some of those, I had those designations, and I had some designations that took me literally 2 hours and a test at a resort in upstate New York to get. It wasn't worth the paper it was written on. And I had designations that were hard to get. And so, that really goes to the first problem. You have to first determine what specialist you need, and then you have to create some minimum criteria. If you were going to go hire someone to work in your company, you'd probably have minimum criteria. If I'm looking for an accountant, I need an accounting degree. I need some experience in accounting. And so they should establish minimum criteria. The last thing you should ever do is go meet with someone that doesn't meet your minimum criteria. Because the only thing that can happen is you can like them, and that's a terrible situation. So people kind of flip this thing wrong. You establish minimum criteria. You send an email to people and say, I'm looking for an advisor. I'm looking for this specialty. And here are my minimum criteria. Do you meet these? And if so, would you like to be considered?
So
that's the start.
So from what I understood, you're making a product out of this.
Yeah, course, service, all those things.
So what's when is it out? What's the timeline for getting?
So I've already educatedinvestors.com is the website. And I've kind of created 27 questions. These are 20, and I give you questions, but I also give you the reasons why you need to ask those questions. For example, what's your assets under management? How many, if you don't have $100 million under management, you don't need to go to that person because they're still in the learning phase, right? And so I give 27 questions and the reason to ask each one of those questions. And that's really stage one. From there, you can go in and really I can teach what I call evidence-based hiring. Basically, it's just a 6-step process. And the last step is the most important. And Bobby, it goes to your point. And that last step is, how do I hold you accountable? Because most people don't know. And I'll leave you with this thought. Whatever the number is you have, let's just say it's $1 million for easy math. And you make 12%. And you feel pretty good about it, right? I made 12% last year, and I feel good about that. If in reality you should have made 15%. So the advisor costs you 3% on $1 million, 30,000. And because you're paying them an asset-based fee, you gave them a 12% pay raise. Because Bobby, you're a nice guy. You're a genius and an entrepreneur.
That doesn't make me a nice guy, just so you know.
But that's what happens right there.
Yeah.
Is that people, so you have to have, and that's what I did, obviously accountability frameworks are what I built in companies when I'm helping them oversee, $500 million, $100 million, $300 million, whatever the number is. You have to have accountability. So you vet first, you ensure that you have the correct advisor from the beginning, and then you make sure that you have an accountability framework so that everyone knows what the expectations are. And that's gonna put you in a much better position for long-term success.
Yeah. Paul, I love this so much. And I think that this is a huge thing. And for everybody out there, I really think that you really need to engage with this. And Paul, just say it for the people that hear it, because you're talking big numbers, but this is for everybody, right? This is for everybody from if you only got $100 to invest and you're just starting all the way up to 100 million, it doesn't matter, because people don't believe that they need a financial advisor because they're like, I only have $5,000. Yeah, but you need to put that $5,000 to work better for you. And you really should be getting a financial advisor that doesn't cost you really anything. So so tell everybody, yes.
So here's where it starts. It really starts though with, if you're sitting there at 100, I'll be honest with you, if you don't have $200,000, advisors don't want to talk to you because they don't make enough money. and they are going to send you. And robo advisors are probably a really good fit for you, but to be honest, at the beginning, because at that point you're in accumulation mode, you're not in decumulation mode. You're just trying to grow it and put as much away. I mean, and that's where putting money in, it matters, and savings the amount. So that's your number one driver, is how much can you save? But once you get over 250 and 500, you've got those 401k plans. This is really for all of those people nearing retirement. They've already had 2 or 3 or 4 jobs. They've got some 401k plans rolled out there and sitting around. They've started to put those together with an advisor, and they realize, you know what, we need some help. This is a little bit more money than we know what to do with. That's when they start engaging advisors. And that's when this is vital. That's when this is so important. And look, if you've got $500,000 and the advisor underperforms by 1% and they cost you 1%, that's 2%. Over 10 years, that's a couple of $100,000 that's lost out of your pocket. Then that's just lost in underperformance and fees. And that's the type of money we're talking about. People just don't understand it because we don't think and extrapolate out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also what's interesting to me about this, and I know we have to get to the next guest,
sure.
But what's your thought behind? I've always wanted an advisor that had made it, right? Had kind of been an entrepreneur, and my current advisor built a company, had exits. Has been there and done that, and
Yes.
understands what I do, right? And I mean, he helped me through the whole process of setting up trust and getting that whole financial structure in place.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little bit. Like, if you're a 30-year-old, you've started your company, like, what's the value in finding somebody that's built a company, had an exit, understands the financial side of it? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about. So here's one of the problems. In fact, I mentioned this on a TikTok this morning. That this is an industry that people get into late in life. There's a whole lot of, I call gray-haired guys, or there's a lot of graybeards out there that got into this after other industries, and some of those weren't successful. I know a football coach that's selling annuities to people. Somebody was his first client, and he was calling plays, a couple of years before that. So that goes back to why you have to vet them. Everybody likes the guy because he was a high school football coach. That doesn't mean he knows anything about investing, and certainly not about how to exit a company. So when you go back to credentials and you go back to, again, step 2 and step 1, what am I looking for? You establish that criteria. And absolutely, you want someone that their background matches your background, right? Their background matches the fact that you've been successful. I know a number of advisors, and again, I spent 20 years in this industry, and at one point I was one of the top 300 in the nation, and I enjoyed my career. But I knew a lot of advisors that had failed, a lot of other times, right? And then they just came to this. And if you're good at sales and you're good at talking to people, people don't know what they're buying. It's just the truth. And so unfortunately, they can sell people on the idea they know what they're doing. And it's
an untold market, Paul. Like it's the best kept secret. Nobody knows how investors make money. You know what I mean? And so if people knew, they could make more educated decisions. So if there's somebody out there that's willing to say, hey, look, here's how your investor makes money on your money. Now you can make a better decision as to who to hire.
Educated investors. So that's the whole reason I named the company like that. Rhett, you're 100% on board. They should be helping you. If you're 30, 40, 25, it doesn't matter. You exit a company and you've got a substantial amount of assets. If that's done wrong, and here's the other thing, and I've used this for years, and I know you guys have another person. If I give you 3 options, Bobby and Rhett, and I explain those 3 options to you well, you're going to make a good decision for you. We're going to come to the good decision if I explain these things well. What tends to happen is 3 or 4 years later, you're talking to somebody else and you find out there was a 4th and a 5th option that you never knew about. And the opportunity cost of that 4th and 5th option is damaging, is crushing, right?
You're going to need back surgery again.
That's what happens.
Here's the takeaway for me, Paul. So many people think it's the right thing to do. Right. I can't tell you how many times I will sit with a client or I'm talking to a friend. Oh, I got a new advisor. And the reason they got a new advisor is because at this age, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And there was no due diligence. There's no, they're it's just because they think they should have one that they go out and they hire somebody that was, recommend, like you said before, they recommend a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's the major takeaway for me is like, and that's the message for everybody that is listening.
Yeah.
Do some homework on this. This is a massive decision. Like this is a massive.
But they don't know the homework to do because the market doesn't make it easy. The industry doesn't make it easy. And the C players look.
Right. They have a name behind them. I mean, I remember the first financial advisor I did.
Yeah.
It was because it was a Ameritrade. Okay. That sounds like it should work. It should be.
Yeah.
Made that same mistake.
I spent 4 years at Merrill Lynch, left there, went with another gentleman and was worked at that company for about 4 years. And then I opened my own firm and spent the next 16 years specializing just on large corporate retirement plans because I realized my analytical nature, that was really where I needed to go. But it kind of goes back to the process and people go into this. They don't have a process. All I've done is create a framework. If you'll just follow these 5 steps, your outcome's going to be significantly better because we're going to get rid of the bad apples.
Paul, how do people find this?
Yeah, educatedinvestors.com. It's I know we got the Paul Powell marketing there. I got another company, but educatedinvestors.com. It's super simple. Just stick the 2 words together. Educated investors. If you're an educated investor, you're going to make better decisions, and that's my entire goal. Is that people are empowered to make better decisions.
Trust me, everybody. Listen, do this. Figure it out. Doesn't matter where you are in that financial journey. We all make the mistake. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel, because I also feel like people feel a little like they feel some kind of way, like because they get so far down the line and they haven't done anything, and they're like, "Wow, that makes me feel stupid." Like, right? Like, we're all smart people, and we're all smart at what we do, and we're all good at making a lot of money. But that doesn't mean that we're good at this. Get a hold of Paul and go research this and ask the questions. This is great stuff. I love this.
And I can vouch for you, man. We firewalk together. So
absolutely. And we'll again. Listen, I know you guys have other people on board. Thank you very much for the time. It was a great time being here with you, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you, brother.
Paul, great seeing you, brothers.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's good stuff, man. I don't even know. I could go on for hours on that one, because we're in the middle of it. I'm telling you, me and my wife are right in the middle of this. I mean, it's a thing because all of a sudden your head's down, you're grinding every day. Everybody has the same solution. And then you get to a point and you're like, shit, man, I didn't do a good enough job investing all this money that I have. And, and I think a lot of people too, they look at this and they say to themselves, oh, I don't have enough money to invest. Well, actually you do, you just don't realize it. So I think it's one of those murky areas in the investment world, in my opinion. So that's an awesome thing.
Look, it goes back to our relationship with money and how uncomfortable money makes us and how, the decisions we make around money. It's just something that I'm glad he's doing, and he's the right guy to do it. But I mean, it's just there's so much. You've got 2 boys. I've got 2 boys. I got 2 college age. 2 kids in college, and like the earlier they learn this stuff, the earlier they avoid these mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a guy when we sold our first company. It's the wrong guy, right? 26-year-old. He had no idea what we were doing, right? So we made a lot of money mistakes that I could have avoided. But
we all do. Yeah, if you could jump into it early, I highly suggest everybody who's listening out there, get a hold of Paul, go to his website, look at this. This is genius. I wish I had this 20 years ago. I'll say that.
100%. Well, we've got Lorraine Wiseman on next. Lorraine, how are you?
Great, thank you. How are you?
You're coming from my home state of South Carolina. I'm down in Kiowa now, but
oh, nice.
But I went to Carolina and this for grad school, so spent a lot of time in Columbia. How's Columbia treating you?
It's treating me well. I'm up and down the coast, though. I'm in Myrtle Beach at least a few times a month with clients and over Alaska. So
struggle's real on that one, huh?
That's where I started my first company, so I know Myrtle Beach really well.
Mm-hmm.
Really well.
But it's a good segue into Lorraine, right? From from Paul, because, we talk about financial planning and this and that. And Lorraine's here to talk about her book, Lack of Readiness, and upcoming in retirement. And so tell us a little bit about this. Again, could it be a better segue? Put your money over here, then let's talk about how you go and spend it over here, right?
Yeah. So I love listening to the tail end of that conversation. What Paul's doing is amazing, and I took note actually of his contact details, because I coach more than 70 CEOs right now and entrepreneurs of companies and business owners, and I can tell you, you're absolutely right. A lot of them, get to the tail end and they're not quite sure what to do with it. But where do I come in? So I'm coaching them right from the beginning to the tail end. And what I have learned over the last 7 years, I'll say that my discovery with this lack of readiness for retirement is not around financial planning. People get the numbers. They get that they have to save. They get that they've got to have the money to survive once it's done. But where they really struggle is what happens next. They get out. They tick off all those bucket list items. They do the trips, they visit the kids, they buy the beach house, they buy the boat, they do all of those things, and then they're left. Now what? And they're feeling extremely empty and lost. So I discovered that as I watched seasoned professionals when I was a CEO running companies. I watched people that had given like 40 some plus years to a company, only to end on a really bitter note. Like they were sour as they were leaving. And I'm like, what happened? A year ago, you were on cloud 9, and right now you're miserable. So what has happened? So I got curious, and I decided, now that I'm coaching clients and I'm helping them with their exits and helping them with their retirements, and I started to see the pattern showing up. So 3 years ago, I went back to school and dug in, started to study, got a PhD in psychology, and wrote my dissertation on this transition and this whole challenge that people go through. And now I'm converting that into a book. So the book that you're talking about that you mentioned is called Becoming a Previously Important Person: Rediscovering Your Purpose in Retirement. So I'm having a little bit of fun with it, but
love that.
It's been interesting. It's been really interesting as I've done the research to see what's going on.
It's hard when people don't laugh at your jokes anymore, right? When you're CEO, people laugh at your jokes.
Yes.
They get paid to laugh at the jokes. That's why. There's a difference.
Yeah, that's so true. So talk about, I know you lead Vistage, you're a Vistage chair, right? And you work with a lot of CEOs. What's causing that anxiety and that exit that's as you said, sour? You get sour at the end. What is causing that?
There's a few things. What I've discovered, what I've learned, and what I see is really there are two big factors. The first is the loss of identity. People don't know who they are. So here in the US, when I ask somebody, tell me about yourself, what's the first thing that people are going to answer? They're going to answer about their job and their work identity and what they do for a living and how they make money and, their positions within companies. So they're so tied to this worker identity that they actually don't know who they are without it. So I can speak from personal experience. I left the corporate world in 2017. And before I decided to start my own company and start coaching, I went through this whole cycle myself. I was like, okay, I'm nobody's president. I'm not solving anybody's problems anymore. My kids certainly don't need me. They graduated. They're off the payroll, doing their thing. My husband's used to me never being around, and being around might be causing an issue now. So, it's like, what do you do? And then who am I? So figuring out, getting reconnected with who you are as a person. I know when I lived in Europe, it was a little bit different, because when I lived over there and ran companies over there, when you'd ask people, tell me about yourself, they would tell you about what they were passionate about. They would tell you about, what their hobbies were and what they enjoyed on the weekends. They didn't go straight to career. Career was a little more secondary, but here at home, it's alive and well. The second thing is that social identity. Okay, 80% of their time is spent at work. So let's talk about the career CEO and even the person that owns the company, the entrepreneur that owns that business. Everybody they know, their connection, 80% of their connection is at work. And, their social identity, they might have a little bit over here in family. They might have the golf club. They might have, some associations that they belong to. But the bulk of what they know in their day-to-day is their social identity and who they're connected with. So that loss of connection, so many people that I interviewed for the research, they said, Lorraine, here's the thing. I thought the people that I worked with were my friends. And when I left, nobody calls me. Nobody invites me out for lunch. Nobody's interested in connecting. And it's just like I was cut off. Yesterday I mattered. Today I don't. And they feel that real loss of connection with the community. So, working with them to figure out, okay, who are your people? Who are your people going to be? Who are you first? And who are your people going to be when you're done with this? And figuring out how to make that transition smoother, easier, and get them ready for when that happens. First of all, knowing that it's normal to feel and experience those things. Because as I said, people talk about the numbers, they talk about the dollars, but they don't talk about how you're going to feel and how you're going to react 6 months later when the honeymoon's over. So, yeah,
it's such a hard balance. I mean, I'm listening to you. Like I've always said I'm going to be done when I'm 55, right? Yeah. I'm 49 this year. So I got 6 years left. And I know I'm going to sell, but like at 55, I'm saying to myself, like, what am I going to do? Right. And I've sold 2 other companies. This right. company is my longest running company, but I can tell you, I'm already the anxiety at 6 years left. The anxiety is already starting to build because I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? Like, what's next? And of course, I'm obviously lining stuff up. You can't stop, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you can't stop. There's things like there's people that just have certain types of retirement, and they're like, this is what they want to just forget about the corporate world. And there's other people who are like, well, let me go give back in the corporate world and do other things. For me, I'm pushing my personal brand. I'm going to be speaking and doing all that. So I'm mentoring more, and so I know what I'm going to do, but I'm still going to feel a loss. Like it's going to be like I lost a wife or a child. Like, and I know that, and that's the comparison that I don't know that people are really prepared for when they exit a business or anything. So I guess, like, how do you, so in this, what is your biggest points that you're telling people? What are the biggest things that you're saying to somebody like myself? Yeah. And you're saying to them, look, here's like, what's that framework look like? Like, how are you prepping them?
Okay. So what you've just said in terms of what you're doing is very proactive. A lot of people don't have that speaking and the mentoring and the coaching. All of those sorts of things really do come into play. I mean, when I left the corporate world, and it took me about 6 months to figure out, okay, what am I really passionate about? I'm really passionate about helping others to succeed. So I've had my heyday, now it's time. And for other people, maybe I can help them learn and to avoid, I was a turnaround expert. I did business turnarounds. So how can they avoid having to have people like me in their life? So, what can I do to help them be successful? And there's so much value that you have, that every one of us has as individuals, right? The experiences that we gain. So a couple of things that I like to recommend. First, if you can transition slowly, do it. So if you can go down, I've got some guys that I get them down to 4 days a week, and then I get them down to 3 days a week. And when I talk about the social connection, I'm having them take that day and go be with their people, their new people. So to reestablish some relationships. So start figuring out what it is you love to do. And if it's golf, join, a club, go and join a league and get out there on a Friday morning or a Monday morning. If it's family, okay, you might have missed a lot of us that have been career professionals, and business people. We've given up a lot of time with our family. We've sacrificed that along the way. So what about grandkids? What are their schedules? How can you get involved in their life?
Well, and to your point, the family is used to you not being around so much. So sometimes you're more of a detriment to the family trying to be around at that point. So there's that balance there too, right?
A lot of divorces happen about that time.
It does, and it's really interesting how many that I've actually watched unfold that way. But the other side of that, of course, is you didn't plan to be a full-time babysitter, and all of a sudden people think that you have all this time, and they plant the kids with you, and you really want to do something more. Of course, you love your family. Of course, you want to spend time, but you want to do something more. You want to feel relevant. And so that relevancy really comes with understanding who you are. And where I go there, I go with strengths. So if you bear with me, I'd love to give you an example of one guy that I researched. This guy, I mean, he was a vice president of sales and marketing for a very large pharmaceutical company, global responsibility. So now, come this day, he's done. Right. So he's used to being in airports every day of the week, different countries a couple times a week, traveling, spending time anywhere but home. So now he retires. And what happens? He ends up moving his family to 5 different states within the first 5 months of his retirement because he can't settle. He just can't get settled. So his wife says to him, that's it. We're done. We're moving to Phoenix. That's where our grandkids are. You can be miserable there. So he said, okay. So what he decided was that, everywhere he traveled in the world, he'd find the local dive bar. He'd like to get to know the locals, spend time, introduce himself to the locals. And then what he did was he realized, okay, this is great. In Phoenix, I'm going to go find myself a bar. So he found a draft beer place where they distill the beer right behind them, a brewery. And he would go in there every single day, chatting up the customers, chatting them up. So much so that the owner came out and said, hey, you're really good at this. Would you like a job? He said, I'm retired. I don't want a job. I'm just enjoying myself. And he said, well, why don't you make your own schedule? Whenever you walk in here, I'm going to pay you, and you can stand on this side of the bar, chat up the customers, and just make your own hours and be here. And well, the guy is having a blast. Well, what was it? His core strength of who he is and his passion is in Strength Finders. It's called woo. He loves and has a great passion around that first meeting of somebody. So as long as he's meeting somebody new every half hour, he's in his happy place. So guess what? He found his passion. He re-identified and said, okay, so he's schlepping beer now, and he's having a blast, right? So he's rediscovered his purpose, his passion. He doesn't need the money. It's about feeling relevant and engaging. He's found his people and he's found himself. So I can give you many, many examples of that, but it's rediscovering and understanding where your passions are. And taking the time to explore that. I work with my clients, 2 years out. I started with one last night. He said, Lorraine, I'm 3.5 years. He's given me a date. I said, okay, let's go. Let's start having this conversation about your passions that have nothing to do with your employment. Let's figure out how to take what you love and what brings you energy and take it outside of the workplace. And what does that look like? So that's kind of where I go. Find yourself, find your people. And I coach people through that. And the book is going to lay that out. It'll lay it out very specifically, chapter by chapter, so that people can kind of find their way if they didn't find a coach, put it that way.
Well, we appreciate you having you on. Something must be wrong with me because I didn't feel any anxiety when I sold my last company.
I'll give you some of mine if you want it, right? Because again, it's a long time out, but I'm like a purpose is gone,
Yeah.
But,
well, you've got time.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
We'll have you back when the book comes out. We certainly want to hear more about it. And where can people find you online?
Leadingthewiseway.com. That's my website. You'll find me there. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm publishing articles on a regular basis in Forbes, in HR Magazine. I'm getting out there as much as I possibly can. And I'll start writing mini articles for LinkedIn as well to start leading up to the book. So you're welcome to follow me there or my blogs on my website, and you can find me there.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Lorraine, thanks for coming. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the time.
Yeah, we'll
Look forward to having you again.
I'll be in Columbia in about 2 weeks. I'd love to grab lunch with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, my contact details are on the website. You have them through this opportunity as well. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to do lunch.
We can track you down.
Okay. Take care.
Wow.
Okay. I'd like, that's it. I'm ready to retire. That's it. We're done. I got financial planning in effect on this show. We got retirement, what to do there on this show. I mean, we got it all. I mean, that's it. There's just nothing else to do.
We drop the mic, we're done. All right.
I love it. Now I love that Lorraine is stepping up and doing that. I love that she's taking the initiative to do that, because it is a scary time in everybody's world when you're giving up what is basically another child. You build a business, you build it to what it is, and you've been married to it for so long, and again, when you're leaving it is truly like a divorce. And so the fact that she's coming in and able to coach people and help and let them realize that they have additional value outside of their business after retirement, I think is exceptional. I can see that. I can just see it. I see the value and I can feel it. So I might be actually calling her, do some work together.
No, look, there's a psychological part to it, right? You're letting go of something, and there's a security in what you're doing right now. There's a security in it, right?
Well, there is, but you lose yourself, right? Like, and that's I think the big concept. Like, I knew a barber in the town that I grew up in, and I'll tell you this quick story. He was a barber, and he lived to be like 100. But he also cut hair until he was 100, and not because he needed to, but because he enjoyed being around the people. And so he literally drove to work every day. He cut hair every day. And I remember asking him at one point, I'm like, why do you still do this? And he goes, because I love the people. He goes, what am I going to do? I'm going to go home and I'm going to sit there and rot away and die. He goes, I'm going to lose my mental clarity. I'm going to lose myself. And that's what's going to happen here. I'm alive, I'm moving, and I'm living my life and enjoying it.
And you're challenging.
There it is. Right. There it is.
You're scared of not having, I know what the only thing that I was worried about in leaving, I gladly turned over the keys, but I think it was how am I going to challenge myself at this level again? Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's something that always got to me. So what's your big takeaway from today?
I think for me, I think we learned a lot today, and I think we learned a lot for everybody, and everybody who's involved and who listened in today. And I think it's number one, don't be scared to invest. Do it soon, do it early, and learn about it. Number two, don't be scared to move on, and know that there's help out there to figure out what your next path is. So I think it's scared. In that, I said it twice. Don't be scared. Open yourself up to solutions and ask questions and understand what is out there for you to take on and to help you with the decisions that you have to make.
Yeah, I think my word today, I came up with a word that just popped in my head was intentionality, right? I think what you're doing, word. Like you're thinking about this now, like you've got 6 years until you turn 55. That's your date. You've got time to be intentional about planning for that and getting your head in the right place and your finances in the right place and everything else, right? I think the same goes for the retirement plan. I think that's an amazing thing to think about 5-6 years out to get your head around it. Same goes for the financial planning. Man, if you can start early, getting a good relationship with money and planning well and finding the right advice, I mean, you can set yourself up early in your life and not have a care in the world. And so I think that was my interesting takeaways for today, but man, it was great to be on with you.
Yeah, it was great to be on with you too, Rod. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sure we'll cross paths again here soon, very soon. But thank you for joining us here on Office Hours. I will see you tomorrow afternoon with Blaine Bartlett and David Meltzer. And till then, thank you for being with us.